The normal copy rhythm, no, the first high life record to be recorded was a record called Yamponsa by a musician called Kwame Asare, popular Ghanaian musician as far back as 1928. The first high life record was Akwaba, Enuanum ni Adofo. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the facts according to Barry Makobnaiboa. I am Barry Makobnaiboa, Mississippi. This is the facts according to me. Need I remind you the purpose of this program? This is a political, historical, and current affairs program. Michelle said, a program where you be idea, many shrimma any mabunu woman with mu, you be idea because perception and say in shrimma ni empadi fian. Inti akoya say a boy a brano, a biara addition, inti a basi be idea. And today we are covering the historical aspect of the program. So today for the topic for the historical segment of the program, we're dealing with the history of Ghana music, the basis and foundation of the music we have as Ghana music, different genres, and the root of it all. So that is what we're here to learn. And maybe sunyade, and never kasiete, chu Ghana le pair table cromante, efunichu, any never fo pepe sweat and for more. None never kasine, no, me and one, any pair and me so. We're here to learn about the history of Ghana music, so we get to it straight. So the basis and the beginning of Ghana music, we had our music culturally. It means before the white man came, any white man, either Portuguese, English, Dane, or whatever country came, we had our own music, tribal music. It means it was traditional, and that music was performed at funerals, ceremonies, festivals, rituals, rites, and all traditional. And every clan and tribe had their music, and those music were dictated by the kind of instruments they used to perform and play such music. Michelle said, before Abrafo, answer na Abrafo ni beba or Ghana and our Gold Coast no. Na yɛwɔ yɛn nnwom dada nnwom no nyinaa yɛ nnwom a ɛyɛ amammerɛ nnwom a ɛwɔ yɛ amammerɛ nnwom abusua biara ne akuw biara ne ɔmo nnwom a ɔmo wɔ ɔmo nkyene ne ɔmo instrument a ɔmo de bɔ saa nnwom no ansa na aborɔfo no baeɛ nti na nkranfoɔ wɔ kpanlogo anwonafoɔ yɛn nuanom anwonafoɔ anaa ɛvɛnfoɔ no na ɔmo wɔ agbagya akamfo no were Fenton from or Phantom from Adowa Kete. So many music and the Northern Ghana for no Modia, they had their own genres of music based on the instruments they used to play and perform such music. And those music were ritual and ceremonial based, I would say. So it was like that until the white man came, especially the English. When the English bought the colony of the Gold Coast in the 19th century, precisely from 1830, and they brought their music in the sense that when the soldiers came, they brought music with them. When the missionaries came, they brought music with them. So on the religious side, the missionaries brought the hymns in their churches. So if it is Catholic, they will get the Catholic hymns. If it is Presbyterian, they will have the Presbyterian hymns. If it is Methodist, they will have the Methodist hymns and all. So on the other side, when it goes to the governor and the generals and the administrative personnel of the colonial masters, they had their music. So it was performed by the soldiers and some foreign colonials from other territories and colonies. Like, for example, when the British army came to this colony called the Gold Coast, they brought personnel from Jamaica, Trinidad, Caribbean to be policemen and soldiers among their army. And when those people came, even though they looked black, they were not Africans, originally Africans. They were from the Caribbean. They couldn't even speak the local language, so they couldn't have a proper interaction with the local people. They behaved as the colonial masters, even though they were black. And that was the tactic. And those people had influence of music in the sense that they've been trying to entertain the white people whenever they were not busy, whenever they were having their durbers and dinners and balls, they would have such soldiers to play bands, precisely bands, for them to enjoy and dance and ball around. And such influences, the local people started picking up. So precisely on the coastal towns where the colonies had been gained, as in the Gold Coast colony, precisely on the coast where the white people were in administrative positions. So aborɔfo no baabi a wɔwɔ biara na nnwom a wɔbɔɔ hɔ no ebi yɛ pop music, rock music, European music precisely. But before no wɔn nso wɔte a na wɔresua such rhythms, trying to imitate it in their local language. Nti wɔte pop music by an European band a wɔbɔ ama aborɔfo a na wɔn nso try the same rhythm wɔn use Ghana twi, anaasɛ Ghana kasa, anaasɛ nkran bi, anaasɛ any local language na wɔde ayɛ lyrics ne wɔn nnwom no mu. Nti na copy rhythm no. Ebi yɛ ya ma yɛkyerɛ wɔn instrument, kɔsua instruments ɛne singing vocals. Nti na local bands started PPA. So the first high life record to be recorded was a record called Yamponsa by a musician called Kwame Asare, popular Ghanaian musician as far back as 1928. The first high life record was recorded by Kwame Asare with a track called Yamponsa. Then into the 40s, and by that time, the 1920s, there was a governor called Gordon Gaggisberg, and he was the governor who popularized education. Before him, the education were only in the hands of the missionary. They were building their schools and training. So such schools trained students to sing with hymns, nothing like an entertainment music. It was purely hymnal music. But Gaggisberg established different schools, especially at Chimota, where they taught music. So there were students who were music students like Guy Warren. Guy Warren was an American student who was born in Ghana. I think his father was an American, and he was born in Ghana and went to Achimota, studied music. And Guy Warren became known as Kofi Ganaba. And Kofi Ganaba, he started a band called the Temples. The Temples band had a man called E.T. Mensah among that band, and the leader was Guy Warren, who was Kofi Ganaba. Late 50s and 60s, Osagyefo came, and he led the drive to make the Ghanaian musicians turn their focus into local rhythms and local music instead of copying European music. So the Temples band, the leader of the Temples band, Kofi Ganaba, actually got out of the band because of that, because his focus was Caribbean music. He was the person to bring jazz to Ghana, jazz music, localized jazz with local rhythms. So he started jazz and Caribbean music then. So he got out of the Temples band, and E.T. Mensah became the leader of the Temples band. And by that, E.T. Mensah, the band, the Temples band, was sponsored by Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And at that time, he was president. Everywhere he went, there was the Temples band, and E.T. Mensah with him performing to conscientize the citizens of Ghana, in the sense that Ghana music, high life started na nye nkwala ndwom, omanfa nye nkwala ndwom, na ya nsem ahuhia education, ene omoka nsem ne afutuo e de ama amanfo wo ndwom nim. Ndi Osagyefo ebema bibifo no focus on local content, some music na ma abibifo no, because that time na abrofo no omokom krom. Until there were no crowds of Ghanaians, almost sitting in ɔmo abrabɔ no ɔmo wɔ akyire no frɛ no high life nti ɔmo wɔ city no nnwuma ɔmo tie ɛwɔ city no yɛfrɛ no high life nti obi ofi city bia nhunu a ne lifestyle ɛne nnwuma otie no ɛkyerɛ sɛ high life nti saa nnwom no ɛne lifestyle no was synonymous with city people. So the music became popular into the 60s, and musicians Kim Bruce, E.T. Mensah were all popular musicians through the 60s, and then came the 70s. The 70s when men like Achampong became president, and he was a conscious African, so he also started a drive for local musicians to focus on traditional music, reinventing the foreign genre of music with a local brand of music, and other crop of musicians like Kim Bruce and others came up in the 70s. And E.T. Mensah exported the high life genre to Nigeria when he had a Nigerian friend called some Prince Waiko. So they went to Nigeria and exported the high life genre to Nigeria, and it got wind some were Nigeria. Into Nigeria for no so started some produce own genre of high life. So categorically Ghana and a day high life echo Nigeria. In fact, to perform in a band or with a band was innovated and introduced to Nigeria by Ghanaians. It is fact, and it is on record. So into the 80s, and the British government brought a policy to allow many Ghanaians to travel to their country because of economic reasons. That would be another topic. So many Ghanaians went to the UK, and that also brought about a different genre of music in the sense that the Ghanaians exported the high life music to the UK, to the United Kingdom, and started producing the high life music with producers from the UK. So musicians like Ben Bracco started his music, high life genre, from the UK. He didn't produce it in Ghana here, he produced it from the UK, and so the Ghanaians went to the UK so much that they changed that policy and the attention got to Germany. So there were different brands of Ghanaian musicians who went to Germany, precisely Hamburg and Düsseldorf. And so they exported the high life to Germany, and the Hamburg producers or the Hamburger producers innovated a genre called the Burger High Life from Hamburg, Germany, because the Ghanaians who returned from Germany, Hamburg, called themselves Burgers. So we had Burger High Life. So Ben Bracco, musicians like Nana Ampem Dako or George Dako were leaders of the Burger High Life from Germany. It was like that trajectory. Different brands of high life from outside were influencing the local music and different music. And bands like Osibisa also came when the Jamaican influence of music like ska and reggae entered Ghana and became popular. So Osibisa band, a big band like Osibisa, innovated the local brand of Jama music with the ska brand of Jamaican music to innovate their own kind of music that was popular in the late 70s and 80s. So it was like that. They were playing, but the Ghana music had no industry to it in the sense that it was individual production. So many of the musicians sought to produce outside instead of locally. So the local influence of music also, when the radio became popular in Ghana, there were the American influence. And precisely in 1971, there was a concert called the Soul to Soul concert, where there were American musicians like Stevie Wonder, Tina Turner, and many others came to Ghana to perform. And they introduced the American music like soul, jazz music, pop and all into the Ghanaian music, and many musicians like Nana Ampadu and others followed suit, and they copied the American genre and mixed it with the local high life. So musicians like CK Man, Nana Ampadu, all of them came after that influence. Into the 80s and early 90s came another genre, that is hip life music. So after the Soul to Soul concert in 1971, the American genre of music like pop, jazz, rock and roll all got introduced into the Ghanaian music, as in Tina Turner and other famous American musicians came to Ghana, and the local Ghanaian musicians who were doing high life started copying the American genre, mixed or syncretized with high life, popularly American jazz. So musicians like Nanam Padu, CK Man, and Ampadu and the City African Brothers. It was all of them had bands, because those days it was band. Any musician would come from band. So CK Man had the young Papa Youngson as member of his band, and other musicians like Senior Adidonko. All of them followed suit in the 70s and in the 80s. A new crop of band had come with local content or local traditions, especially the Ga called the Wulome, and they were doing traditional Ga ritual music. So they got popular in the early 80s too. So by virtue of the radio, American hip hop got introduced into Ghana music. Mature said by late 80s or mid 80s, radio na ɛwɔ Ghana mmabunu ne amanfoɔ tie radio. Sisi ani sɛ wokɔtɔ CD anaa gramophone apaawa ansa na wabɛtie nnwom a ɛfi aburokyire. But sisi a wɔtumi bɔ nnwom wɔ radio so ma amanfoɔ te. Nti nnwom a ɛfi aburokyire te sɛ hip hop, rock and roll, European music na yɛbɔ ɛwɔ radio no so ama youth no mmabunu, especially secondary school goers, almost started in your influence into during school entertainment. When was a student, a failure, almost performing foreign music, especially hip hop and reggae music, leaving the local high life music behind among the youth. So high life became the pursuit for the older generation during the late 80s into the early 90s, and they were doing predominantly hip hop. So until one musician from America, he's the son of a designer called Saint Osei. His son, Oboba Yawasante, aka Reggie Rockstone, he came on the scene from America. He was performing the American brand of hip hop from New York, and his father, being an Afrocentric father, conscientized him to reinvent it with a local brand of high life. So he came to Ghana, recorded hip hop on high life beats, or a syncretized beat of hip hop and local high life beat, and he named it Hip Life. He was the first person to use the name or the term for the genre called hip life as we know it. So from the early 90s, there were musicians who started coming back to mix the tree music on hip hop beats. Some who were doing hip hop were doing it on hip life rhythms. So hip hop musicians like Cy Lover were doing strictly hip hop, but with hip life beats, and they were collaborating with local hip life musicians like Obrafo, Lokenya. All of them came on the scene. And by that time, because of the entertainment movement of the hip hop from secondary schools, many secondary school leavers saw an avenue to be musicians, or local hip hop musicians, whom they call themselves hip life musicians. So the hip life genre gained popularity among the younger generation, and in fact, it got inducted into the Ghana Music Awards in the early 2000s when they the charter was created. So hip life became a prominent genre in Ghana until the early 2000s. Early 2000s, hip hop came back to gain control as in the language dynamics, in the sense that hip life was predominantly produced with a Tree language on the foreign beat, or you do an English language on the local beat. So that was hip life. But other musicians locally were doing foreign language like English on foreign beat or hip hop beat. So they were local hip hop musicians. So uh, uh, other musicians were producing hip hop music, and then came the language barrier that they started getting the crossing barrier between Ghana and Nigeria. So Nigerian music started coming to Ghana, and Ghana music going to Nigeria. But mostly, it is Nigerian music coming to Ghana, and such music were produced in English, and it had a big fan base among the English-speaking people. So many Ghanaians sought to change the language from producing in Twi into English or Pidgin, which is um, particular among some African countries in West Africa. So new genre called the Afrobeat came up, and from the 2000s into the 2010s, now the hip life have been sidelined, and a new genre called the Afrobeat have come up, dancehall have come up. So in fact, the first earliest dancehall musicians like Rutai in the early 2000s innovated with a genre by bringing dancehall. There were musicians like Yogi Doggy who were doing dancehall. There was Sonny Bali, and then came Samini, and then came Bandana, and he went back and came Shatawale, and he has been championing the dancehall genre. Then came Stoneboy, who was with Samini, and he became a vibrant musician in the dancehall genre. So many music genres have been syncretized from the root of high life, from the high life itself to hip life, to hip hop, to dancehall, to Afrobeat, and we are still counting, as the future will tell. In the sense that now there's what is called the internet, and music listening and music appreciation has changed a lot. In the sense that first, music appreciation started with listening to a live band, and then came to listening to it on a recorded CD, gramophone, or whatever, vinyl. Then came the radio broadcasting music, playing the vinyls and the gramophones in the radio stations for the people to listen. And then came to CDs that the people can affordably buy and go listen privately. And then came the MP3s, which is a virtual version of the CDs, which is compatible for listening to music remotely. And then came the internet, and now we are music streaming, where you don't even have to download music anymore. You just have to click it, and you're listening to any music from any part of the world. And our local music, just say, by virtue of internet, Ghana music, Ajinsem, and African music, and now we're doing Ghana music. So Ghana music, Ajinsem, Sisia, Ubetimi our Ghana ha, yeah, 30 million per. But by virtue of the internet, musician be bet me and yabe in 70 million on the internet, which is twice the size of the country he comes from, when he can never even get half of the whole country supporting him, but he can get more than what his country have as population to support him outside by virtue of the internet. And that is dictated by the English language. Yes, now it is not free anymore. You have to make this music for people to understand elsewhere, for people to appreciate elsewhere. So Now the audience is not only Ghanaians, but it is universal now. Into Ghana music, the agency. Into that is the background and basis. Yanyuma yo Ghana, bedroom prepare, so I'm abobody baby a fee, and the senior started, and then a media bro. Most soon for Barry Makop na boy. I have been here to educate you, and I'll do that. And send me the piano. Program where I call say uko in Roma. Mboy dia habanya na baby didi and sana mo nam enu mojanaba. Na mo munu mojane badi anaba bieu. So this program is like we're in the wild where all the herbivores would come to fish first, then the carnivores would come later. And this is a carnivore program. We're here to feast on the ignorance. We're here to eat ignorance. For lunch, for breakfast, for supper. Even when we're eating, we'll be sleeping, we'll be eating ignorance for breakfast. So follow, subscribe, comment, like, talk about it, comment, let's debate. You can suggest any topic you want me to shed light on. Let us all learn, and let's move. Let's be patriotic. Let's change the dynamic of the future. How we see it is not proper. It's only knowledge that we can change the future. And into Namawaha, was soon for Barry Makop Nayabo. I'm out of here. Thank you. I swear to watch any more dimbo, no one able to me, I'm a yadin kunim.